Robert Reed was not in the final episode of his own show. He was fired. He had written angry memos to the producer after every single episode for 5 years and then refused to film the last one. That story is not at number one. What is at number one is darker and quieter, and it is about what Robert Reed was carrying every single day behind the most wholesome front door in American television. Think about Friday nights, 7:30, that theme song, 9 people on a staircase, a house that always felt warm even through a television screen. The Brady Bunch ran for 5 seasons, was largely ignored during its original run, and then went into syndication and never left. Your children knew these characters, their children do too, and the story behind that front door was nothing like what was inside it. If these are the shows that shaped your understanding of American family life, this channel was built for you. Subscribe before we start. Let's go. Number 10. A 4-line statistic in a newspaper started everything. The entire concept of the Brady Bunch came from a single 4-line filler piece in the Los Angeles Times. Producer Sherwood Schwartz read that in 1965, 31% of all marriages in America involved a child or children from a previous relationship. He called it a remarkable sociological change, a statistic, not a story pitch, not a network commission. One paragraph about demographics, and Schwartz saw in it the specific American family that television had not yet shown. He built the show from that number, the blended family, the 6 children, the 2 adults starting over. All of it began with 4 lines of newspaper copy that most readers skipped over without pausing, and the show almost had a completely different name. Number 9, it was called Mine and Yours, then The Bradley Brood, then finally this. When Sherwood Schwartz began working on the pilot script, he temporarily called the show Mine and Yours. The network wanted modifications before committing, and the title became The Bradley Brood for a period. Only when it finally reached air in September 1969 did it become The Brady Bunch, 3 names, each one inching closer to something that sounded like a family rather than a transaction. Mine and Yours sounds like a legal arrangement. The Bradley Brood sounds vaguely threatening. The Brady Bunch sounds like people who belong together. The title that has been quoted, parodied, and referenced for 55 years was the 3rd attempt. Sometimes the right name arrives last, and inside that name, one character had a past the network refused to acknowledge. Number 8. Nobody knew what happened to Carol's first husband. The network wouldn't allow the truth. The show's original concept had Carol Brady as a divorcee, a woman whose first marriage had ended and who was beginning again. The network refused. Divorce was considered too problematic for a family sitcom in 1969. The character's first husband was written out of existence without explanation. 5 seasons aired without a single reference to what had happened to Carol's previous partner. Florence Henderson's private response was to joke, quietly, offset, that Carol had murdered her first husband. It was her way of acknowledging the absurdity of a character whose entire backstory had been legally erased by a network's discomfort. The most important fact about Carol Brady was the one the show was never allowed to say, and the man playing her husband had his own facts the show was never allowed to say. Number 7, Robert Reed, wrote a memo after every episode, for 5 years, without stopping. Robert Reed was a classically trained actor, formally educated, technically precise, deeply serious about his craft. The Brady Bunch's storylines frequently fell short of what he considered realistic or defensible writing. His response was consistent and relentless. He wrote detailed memos to creator Sherwood Schwartz after every single episode, cataloging factual inaccuracies, logical inconsistencies, and creative failures. Every episode, for 5 years, 117 episodes, 117 memos. Schwartz received them all, responded to some, ignored most. The tension between them ran the entire length of the show. 2 men with completely different ideas about what the Brady Bunch was supposed to be. Reed wanted it to mean something. Schwartz wanted it to be on Friday nights, and Reed was carrying something else entirely that nobody was permitted to discuss. Before we keep going, how old were you when the Brady Bunch was first on television? And which Brady were you, or which one did you wish you were? Drop both answers in the comments right now. Number 6. Robert Reed was gay. Florence Henderson said the show could not have existed if anyone had known. Robert Reed was a gay man living in an era when that fact, if known, would have ended his career immediately. He kept his private life completely hidden from the public throughout the run of the show and for most of the years that followed. Many of his cast members knew. None of them said anything publicly until well after the show ended. Florence Henderson said it plainly years later. She believed the Brady Bunch could not have existed if audiences had known Robert Reed was gay. He was playing America's perfect father while concealing everything about himself that was real. She called him a good man living in a time when being himself could destroy him. And Florence Henderson herself had her own unusual situation during the very first episodes. Number 5, she was in Europe for the first 6 episodes. They filmed without her. Florence Henderson was working in Europe during production of the first 6 episodes of the series. Rather than delay the entire production, the makers filmed those episodes without her, and then had Henderson come in afterward to deliver her own lines alone to an empty set. Her responses in those episodes were recorded separately and edited in. The mother of the Brady family, the warm, present, always available center of the household, was not in the building for a quarter of the first season. Her scenes were assembled in editing from footage shot weeks apart. The audience saw a family, the production had a puzzle, it fit together seamlessly, and nobody watching on Friday nights had any idea. And speaking of things that happened when nobody was fully paying attention, there was the matter of a date. Number 4, Barry Williams asked Florence Henderson on a date. He was 16. She brought his brother. Barry Williams, who played the eldest Brady boy, Greg, developed a serious crush on Florence Henderson during production. He eventually invited her to dinner. He was 16 years old and did not yet have a driver's license. Henderson agreed to go and brought Williams's older brother along to drive them and to ensure the evening remained entirely appropriate. Henderson said afterward that the whole thing had been blown completely out of proportion, that it was a pleasant dinner and a nice little peck goodnight. Williams said it was absolutely a date, and he was completely serious about it. Both things are probably true simultaneously. 16-year-old boys are frequently more serious than the adults around them realize. Henderson handled it with the specific grace of a woman who knew exactly what was happening and chose warmth over embarrassment. And Williams was not the only Brady with a complicated off-screen relationship. Number 3, all 6 Brady children dated each other. The dog's kennel was involved. The 6 actors playing the Brady children, matched by age, 3 boys and 3 girls, formed real romantic attachments during the show's run. Barry Williams and Maureen McCormick developed a genuine relationship during the Hawaii episodes of Season 4. The children made out in their trailers and in the kennel belonging to Tiger, the Brady family dog. Every combination that could reasonably pair by age did at some point during the 5 years they worked together. McCormick later wrote about how strange it was to film scenes with Williams after their relationship began, playing TV siblings while navigating something considerably more complicated. The show, built around the perfect family structure, was quietly running a parallel story that its audience never saw. Tiger's kennel kept every secret. And then came the final episode, and one cast member was not in it. Number 2, Reed was fired from his own finale. He refused to film the last script. Robert Reed refused to appear in the final episode of The Brady Bunch. The script involved a singing star visiting the Brady household, a storyline Reed considered beneath contempt and professionally indefensible. He wrote his final memo. He stated his objections. He declined to participate. Sherwood Schwartz fired him. The series finale of The Brady Bunch aired without the man who had played the father for 5 seasons, 116 episodes, 5 years, 116 memos, and then one final refusal that meant Mike Brady simply did not appear in the last half hour of his own family's story. The show ended. Reed was not there for it. He and Schwartz never fully reconciled the creative differences that had run between them since 1969, and what happened to Robert Reed after the show ended is the story that changes everything. Number 1, he played America's perfect father. He went home to a life he could never show anyone. Robert Reed died on May 12, 1992. He was 59 years old. The cause was colon lymphoma complicated by HIV. He died of an AIDS-related illness, having spent 5 years as the most recognized TV father in America while keeping his entire private life invisible to the country that had loved that image. Florence Henderson said the show could not have existed if people had known. She was probably right. 1969. America had no framework for what Robert Reed actually was, and the industry he worked in had even less. So he played Mike Brady. He showed up every week. He delivered the weekly homily about what the children had learned. He tested the roller coaster before he let the child actors ride it, because he knew that if anything went wrong, it would happen to them first. He sat with Bobby and Cindy between takes in the specific way a person who has never been fully protected protects others. The children who played his TV children said he was closer to them than their own fathers. He was absent from his own finale. He kept his private life sealed until the end. And the family he played, the warm, safe,
Think.
always forgiving Brady family, was the one place he was allowed to be exactly who the world needed him to be. That is the Brady Bunch. Tell us in the comments, which Brady were you growing up? And is there a specific episode that lives in you still? One scene, one moment, one Friday night you remember exactly? Write it down. We want to know. Subscribe and hit the bell. We will see you in the next one.